Welcome to the Dynamics of Everyday Life, where we demystify some tricky concepts and get to know ourselves a little bit better. Welcome back to the Dynamics of Everyday Life. Today I'm delighted to welcome another guest to the show, fellow coach Kate Adey. Join us as we delve into a fascinating conversation about control, anxiety and what this means for us in today's world. So welcome back everyone to the show, and today I'm delighted to be introducing another guest. Today we have Kate Adey, who is a parent transition and executive coach, and Kate and I are going to be having a chat about control and how much control we think we have in our lives versus how much control we actually do. But Kate, welcome to the show. Do introduce yourself.
Thanks, Julia. Great to be here. I look forward to our chat in a minute. So I have over 20 years of a management consulting and executive coaching experience, and I have a specialist area in managing parental transition, so working with those who are going off on parental leave and then also returning to work and then once they're back at work. So that can be quite a transformative period in one's life. So I support people to navigate that transition successfully. I got a bit of an academic background as well. So I did a master's in management learning and leadership, where I focused on my dissertation being on maternity transition to professional services firm. I've got 3 kids, Victor, Ben and Jack. They are 18, 16 and 12, married to James, and live in Somerset. So yeah, good to be here.
Well, thank you. You're very welcome. And in that introduction, there are so many points there around change in people's lives and how people can feel out of control in those moments.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. And I suppose I might just give a little bit of a framework, maybe, because what I find is when people are coming to me, and also this is for my own journey as well, in not only maternity transition, but in life, in stuff that happens, is how do we navigate through it? And I think it's this little framework, it can apply to you, plus also to kind of how my coaching has evolved. So there's 3 stages. The first stage, imagine like a house, and the first stage is like being in a room of that house. And this might be, just imagine kind of yourself in that room. So for me, my coaching was very much then about goal-based. Okay, so how might we change the look of this room in the house? Just one room in the house. We might paint it a different color. We might put some different furniture in it. So in terms of, it's very much sort of mini goals. Yeah, and we might in life just set ourselves mini goals, but in just a very limited space. Then the next stage of the framework would be more about, oh, actually, the house has got some more rooms. I want to go investigate those. So you begin to kind of branch out and have a bit of a, from a coaching perspective, going, or maybe I have been a bit negative. I'm going to start to reframe my thinking, or maybe do some positive thinking and just really step into the unknown a bit more. I'm hoping this is making sense. And
Absolutely.
my third stage is actually, oh my goodness, there is the entire house and there's a door that opens into an even bigger kind of world out there. And that third stage in terms of my coaching is really where I go, which is helping people to see beyond the limitations of the house. So for me, this is beyond the limitations of who we think we are, because the thinking sometimes gets in the way of us actually being our true selves and our true nature. So this just came to mind, Julia. So I just wonder whether, does that spring up any questions in terms of how that might apply maybe for some listeners?
Well, it really strikes a chord in terms of the narratives that we tell ourselves, because when you think about it, we can decide that we are only in one room, but actually chances are we've got a whole house to explore.
Yeah.
But it can be really quite tricky, can't it? allowing yourself, giving yourself the permission to go and explore what else there is. And in terms of, you mentioned parent transition, I remember when I became a new parent, my world shrank.
Hmm.
So I was used to going out to work and being in charge of all these services and making decisions and, people doing what I asked them to.
Mm,
People calling me by
mm,
my name instead of, either
mm,
Emma's mum or Mummy, which is what I used to get frequently. But it's your world shrinks, and so therefore you feel that you have less control over
mm,
what's going on. And when you become a parent, I mean, you just personally, I mean, this was me, felt completely out of control
mm.
of everything.
But back to your point, that narrative is, from my perspective, is the thing that is controlling. So if we are talking to ourselves and believing the, call it the mind or the narrative, so that and living in those beliefs, then we're kind of in that first, just in the room, and we're limiting our life. And I think the key thing here, which can take a moment or even a little bit more than a moment sometimes to kind of for the penny to drop, is if we take a step back and actually look at what is that thinking, what is that narrative, because we're getting in our own way. So we think we're the ones that are in control of our lives, if you like, of what happens. But actually, if we kind of step back and go, well, thinking is thinking. Thinking is like the clouds in the sky. They just come and go. But actually, there's something always behind the clouds. So is there something always there, if you like, that's behind the thoughts that is actually the essence almost of who we really are? And if we allow, and I'm sure listeners, if we think about an example of where we've kind of just felt, call it in the zone or in the flow, maybe it's going for a walk with a friend and we just lose ourselves. We're just happening. We're just walking, talking, thinking, and it's all happening. As soon as we go into our minds about, oh, I should have to do that, or I'm carrying a belief about how I ought to be, then we're trapped. And that's where the control element comes in, that is a myth, if you like, or an illusion, because it's not really what's really going on, if you see what I mean. Does that make
Mhm.
any sense?
Yeah, it's great for me when we're talking. I'm finding it fascinating in that it's almost like we can think we're in control, but also there's a bit of cognitive dissonance going on, isn't there? Because also there are times when you think you don't have any control, and actually you have huge amounts of control, and it takes somebody else to look at you and go, "Sorry, can you see how much control that you have here?" So it's almost like we can think we have no control, but we actually can think we have too much control as well.
Yeah, it's almost like, and I kind of get control perhaps is misleading in a way, because almost if we take an example, maybe we have to make a decision about something that doesn't even need to be that big. And actually, even before, as soon as we go into thinking that we have to make a decision, we overthink it. But actually, if we pause, so we think we kind of make it more about us and more about, there's a lot of trying in that, which can be quite exhausting. But if we can take a pause in our lives and just almost tune into, if I wasn't overthinking this, what would the answer be? And often the answer is just there. So in a way, that is like, I suppose, control. Well, there's an element of, it's not, yeah, it's not controlling in a trying way. It's more just, we can have more control if we actually get out of our own way. You see, it's the paradox. Does that make sense? Because as soon as we trap ourselves or in that room again, I mean, you even think of, yeah, people who, we're kind of the prisoners of our own mind, aren't we? And that's when we get into kind of really kind of feeling very tense and very small and very stressed and very kind of maybe stuck as well. But I actually just take a pause and go, oh, what is the narrative that's going on at the moment? I'm aware of feeling a bit anxious. And even just asking those questions, we can go, oh, another answer or another step has just appeared. Because that's actually how, it's not control, but it's just how life happens.
And I think the other thing that's really key here as well is, whose narrative is it? So is it your narrative that you've chosen? You're like, no, actually, this
Mm-hmm.
is how I want to live my life. These are the values and the things that I'm hanging on to.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it somebody else's narrative? You should be doing
Mm-hmm.
this. You
Mm-hmm.
should
Mm-hmm.
have, got the high flying city job at, by
Yep.
35. You should have the house and the picket fence and the 2.4 children and the dog and the cat by this
Yeah.
time. You should have done all
Yeah.
this. But actually, that's not your dream.
Yeah.
Perhaps you want to be flying around the world, skydiving in the
Yeah.
mountains of Tibet.
Yeah. 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 Totally, totally, totally. So there's a bit of an exercise here to begin to notice the narrative. So, like you're saying, if there are any shoulds in there or what's have tos, write them down. Just start to put them down and going, it's a bit like, I think it's Byron Katie's work, isn't it? You can around beliefs, and she even has a worksheet and you can print it off. But even just on a piece of paper, begin to pause and go, I'm interested, I'm curious about what my narrative might be. And by writing it down, you can begin to go, gosh, I'm living my life in some expectations of someone else's expectations of how they think I should be living my life. Is that how I want to live my life? So there is that bit, as you say, is it the shoulds? And to your point about, is it your own? But you might have your own, I suppose, your own narrative that, I think the thing with your own narrative, if it feels expansive, if it's just like, and you're asking yourself maybe if it's kind of, I suppose, feels good, then just it's almost like, that just let it happen. But I think if it feels like you're a bit stuck, then it's an opportunity to go, what am I telling myself here? That just pause a moment. Actually, what do I really want to do? Maybe even if it's like, what do I want to do this morning? What do I want to do this afternoon? And then maybe a little bit more about what do I want to do in this year. We just, 2025. How do I want to feel by the end of this year? And maybe begin to take some, I don't want to say kind of just almost to go, I'm gonna really just look at this and live in a way where I'm just kind of owning it, if you like, and not following. Which I think we can, it's an important thing, isn't it? Just to ask oneself those questions.
I mean, the question of, am I following, or who am I following, or what am I following, can be incredibly profound,
Mm,
actually, can't it?
mm, mm.
Because if you think about it, there's a whole new industry of becoming an influencer. So literally wanting people to follow you. And I was quite astounded when TikTok might go down, that apparently all these people were going to lose their incomes. And I was like, how? How are people making huge amounts of money on TikTok? But then it's not my world. So I don't understand
Yeah,
how
no
people
mind.
make the money on
Yeah.
TikTok. But when you think about it, it's, we have become a world of people who want to be followed.
But I think there, and in fact, what comes up for me when you say that is, and I kind of know Instagram a bit better than TikTok, is the influences. You can, if you kind of stand back, you can almost tell there's a difference between where they're coming from. So where someone's kind of coming from a place of kind of genuine passion for what they do, that comes across in their reels or whatever they're doing on Instagram, versus someone who is coming from a place of narrative, or call it ego, which is more superficial, and it comes across as a bit just sales, or I've got to put myself out there because it's boom, 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 boom. And there's for me, there's a difference in kind of back to that kind of where are you coming from, even in everyday interactions. You can have a conversation with a friend or a member of family, and actually, are you coming from a place of kind of genuine passion, love, joy, whatever one wants to call it, and therefore you're listening to them and you're not trying to control it, not trying to control them, not trying to get them to do something that you think they should do, versus just being there, open, curious, and supportive. So I put a lot out there. Sorry, I don't know.
I love it.
Do you notice? I mean, I just think in the Instagram thing that where someone's coming from, and I've got some examples in my head of where it does feel different. Does it for you on TikTok or?
I mean, I'm not. I am on TikTok, but I really wouldn't say I have a huge presence there. It's literally my audiogram. I just plonk it on there, in the vain hope people will watch.
But in fact, you could use yourself as an example. Why
Yeah,
do you do it?
absolutely. I mean, I find TikTok different because, I mean, watching my daughter go through TikTok reels makes me feel slightly sick because the
Yeah,
speed that she goes
yeah,
at,
yeah,
and you have to be really attention grabbing for people to watch anything. And I'm not sure that's who I speak to. The whole point of me doing this is for us to start to understand ourselves better, start to learn a bit more about ourselves, start to not, we don't, I'm not expecting people to read Freud. I'm here to read it and break it down and make it easier for people. But it's to start to ask those questions. And it made me think,
yeah.
when you mentioned Byron Katie, it made me think that, so I know that she has 4 questions. I can never remember the second two. The first two I find are really important. So, how true is that? How do
Yes,
you know it's true? Because
yes.
we spend
What's
so,
your belief, isn't it? It starts
yeah,
off, what's your belief? And you write it down. How true is that? And then if you think it's true, and then she asks again. So it's keeping asking.
because I mean, that's such a good point. We walk around
Yeah,
with these assumptions that things are true. And if somebody stops you and go, yeah, but how do you know that's true?
it's all made up. But if we can start to begin to just look at our own stuff and see, as you say, call it assumptions. I mean, we live our lives in that kind of spiral or just cycle, and but why do we do that? It's because it's noise, isn't it? It's noise, it's distracting. It's actually takes us away from being exactly who you are. Like you're here to be, just to be you, but you could be kind of stuck in some kind of narrative of who you think you should be, and that has a different life experience, doesn't it? You kind of end up being very much in the movie, but not in the way life is just happening.
And you tend to
But
feel a bit square peg in a round hole. If you're doing something and you think, I'm not loving this, there's that kind of,
yeah,
you feel slightly derailed
yeah,
all the time,
yeah.
don't you?
There's an opportunity here for all of us. All of us can take that moment to go, if I am feeling that kind of almost, yeah, that square peg round hole, well, I can carry on and just moan or stuck or feel repressed or whatever, or I can actually go, okay, so what's the message in this for me? And see if, because all of us have a song to sing, if you like, or I kind of like sometimes of saying, if the sun has all its rays, and we're all the sun in terms of our being, our nature, and our human individuality is like an individual ray coming out. Wouldn't it be great if we all knew what that kind of ray of light was? I don't know whether that's taking it a bit far with another metaphor, but so that we can all, wouldn't we be kind of walking around the streets and interacting with people from a much more open, less controlling, because I think back to the control thing, we try to control others. It's not, don't we? We try to get others to do what we want them to do, whether that's as a parent with our kids. In fact, they are another ray of light. They've got their own path. Yes, we can guide and we can point, but actually stuff happens in life for them, and stuff happens for us. Yeah, it even in the workplace, that we try and control our, people that we're leading. Right? Yes, they have to, back to the following. They have to follow me. Or why? Why would I follow you? And then you end up with conflict.
And I think anxiety is linked to control a lot as well, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
if you get anxious, none of us want to feel anxious. So we then go into, right, let's control something. Let's try and get control over a situation to make me feel better. So whether that's I'm trying to control myself or I'm trying to control other people, it's this drive that we have that makes us want to feel better, because in some ways we're not feeling good.
And we're acting from that place of anxiety. Whereas I would say encourage when you feel anxious, because we have that, and the body is telling you there's anxiety. Okay, either what's this anxiety saying, or just see it as for what it is, because all feelings and emotions just pass through, but we stop it because we create a story about it. So, I'm aware of feeling anxious. Okay, just sit with it. Let it come through what it's supposed to do. We're not supposed to have feelings, suppressed or act from that. Just let it come through, do whatever, and okay, what do I do next? So it's seeing, and particularly, anxiety, well, any kind of fear. We don't want to be kind of reacting from those emotions. We just want to let them come through, the kind of live in it, really. Because that's just the content of our experience. We're always thinking, feeling, sensing, perceiving. That is happening. But it's what is aware of all that. What's aware? We wouldn't be able to say we're having an experience unless we were aware. So there's always a calmness, peace, stillness, if you like, behind all that noise, which is where the peace is, if you like, it for life, rather than coming from the noise of the content and the controlling, or the anxiety. And as you begin to kind of ask yourself some different questions, then you spend less time in that anxiety or in that whatever feeling. Because do you find, people concentrate on the, I am anxious, and then when as humans, we kind of almost zoom in to tell me the story rather than actually helping in a different way to actually see that what comes before the I am, what comes before the anxiety, or what comes before the depression is I am. I am is always there. That's the awareness bit. And we miss it because we go straight into the story of the anxiety. Does that make any sense?
Get rid of it. Yeah, absolutely.
And we want to get rid of it, because we're lacking. But then we're in that cycle, and that, if we can see that cycle, is just, it's going to happen unless we pop out of it and take a step back.
And it gets to the point where we can almost feel anxious about feeling anxious.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, well, I can't do that because I always get anxious, and we attach because of our anxiety when we're last anxious, and then well, I can't go and talk to that person because I'm an anxious. I have people sort of say I'm an anxious person. Well, only as much as you think you are. You think, so it's all in the thinking. Think you're that, then it'll create that feeling. But you don't have to live in that if you can begin to see it for what it is. And it's very free, because I did 20 years ago or something like that. I was very much, no, not anxious, but definitely an overthinker. I'm thinking that I was in control of everything I did, had to sort everything out. And that's quite exhausting. I used to get a lot of headaches, but I haven't had a headache in a long time. Unless I'm detoxing from coffee or something, and then I have a massive headache.
I think there's a lot in the overthinking being linked to control. And I have a lot of people say to me, how can I stop the overthinking? And a lot of it is release your need for control. Give up the feeling that you have to control everything, because you're always going to be disappointed. If you have to control everything, you're always going to be disappointed, because you can't control what other people think of you can't control how other people are going to respond, and then that's going to make you anxious. But it's a really tricky one for people to feel okay about.
I would say start with curiosity, because there's things there and probably experiences that you've had where you drop out of, you're not anxious the whole time, or you're not. There are those moments that we need to remember, like the walk in the park or a coffee with a friend, where we're just okay, so what's different about that? I'm not anxious there. So what's going on there? So actually the overthinking isn't happening. So it actually isn't normal. It's just we normalize it and we make it a bigger thing than it really is. So it's beginning to be a bit curious about, maybe today I'll just wake up and actually look at, just take a step back and notice, like we were saying at the beginning, what's the narrative that I've got? Take a notebook, write down the shoulds, and just begin to look, to have curiosity, because it's all there to be seen. It's always there, but we rush around in life, and then we have expectations, and we live and know that kind of turmoil and lack, that we will always suffer if we're living in that place of I'm not good enough, and I have to be better, and I have to be, that's just a endless suffering cycle,
which nobody needs.
No, not at all, and the body doesn't need it either. Sometimes we're a bit disconnected. I was certainly disconnected for a while from my body, but the body tells us a lot, and we miss it because we're in our heads. Just begin to slow down and tune in. It's fun. And actually, if we take it seriously, then we're overthinking kind of what we got to do, because we're overthinking it's just beginning to have fun and see things and ask different questions about, how does this human being kind of operate?
Being kind to ourselves, as I always say in my individual episodes, I always say, give yourself some grace, because this stuff is hard to get our heads around. We might not get it right.
We're conditioned. Absolutely. It doesn't matter, but give it a go. It's a bit, if we continue to do the same thing, we'll get the same answer. So we kind of know that, but let's just do one thing. Let's just do one thing different, that is not about anyone else. It's not pointing the finger at anyone else. It's just like, no, I'm going to take ownership of this, and I'm just going to begin to explore this with a little bit of curiosity and fun, and, as you say, be light on ourselves.
I could talk to you about this all day.
I think we could go on, couldn't we?
We could go on and on and on, but
bore everyone off.
This is not Diary of a CEO that goes on for 2 hours. I don't know that people would want to listen to me for 2 hours. It's been absolutely delightful having you on, Kate. How can people get in touch with you?
The best place at the moment is on LinkedIn. So Kate Adey, you'll find me there, Adey. Website is under construction, or it's under review, being updated. So LinkedIn is probably the best thing, and there you'll find my email as well. So
thank you. Well, I'll make sure that goes in the show notes as well. So in case anybody's driving and thinks, I don't have a pen to write it down, I'll pop that in the show notes. But thank you so much for being a guest on the show. It's been lovely to have you, and hopefully we'll have you back another time to continue the conversation.
That would be fantastic.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Dynamics of Everyday Life. Please hit the follow button for future episodes and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow me on Instagram at The Dynamics of Everyday Life or find me on LinkedIn at Julia Rogers. I'd love to hear from you and hear your thoughts on dynamics. The Dynamics of Everyday Life is brought to you by Coaching 42 and the fabulous team at the Podcast Boutique.